Mary Kay Cabot didn't say much, but it was enough to blow the lid off the Browns' quarterback situation. One offhand comment, barely more than a sentence, and suddenly the franchise is drowning in speculation, finger-pointing, and a full-blown identity crisis. The line? He couldn't finish the job. That was all it took for the whispers around Dillon Gabriel's shaky debut to erupt into full-on chaos.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The context was already combustible. Gabriel's first game as a starter against the Vikings didn't just disappoint, it deflated an entire fan base. The final drive was a disaster, his decision-making was timid, and by the end fans weren't just frustrated, they were done. But Cabot's subtle jab didn't just confirm what everyone was thinking. It threw gas on the fire and forced the Browns' leadership to confront what they'd been trying to avoid. This might not be the guy. Now enter Shedeur Sanders. Not with words, not with drama, but with silence. While Gabriel stumbles and the locker room reportedly starts to fracture, Sanders just stands on the sidelines, calm and collected. His presence alone has become a rallying point for fans, and a looming threat to Gabriel's already fragile hold on the starting job. And it's not just the fans. Some veteran players are quietly questioning why the coaching staff is still clinging to a quarterback who already seems overwhelmed. Kevin Stefanski now finds himself in the middle of a storm that's no longer hypothetical. The public wants Sanders. The locker room sounds restless. The media's already moving on. But Stefanski's sticking with Gabriel, for now, drawing the kind of scrutiny that can define a coach's legacy. Is this loyalty? Or stubbornness? Because right now, every snap Gabriel takes feels like another countdown to implosion. Meanwhile, Sanders has done nothing but wait, and somehow that's made him the most powerful figure in the room. His college tape is everywhere. His poise is the subject of Twitter threads. He hasn't taken a snap, but he's already being treated like the franchise savior. And that's not just wishful thinking anymore, that's momentum. Real viral momentum. Mary Kay Cabot didn't start the fire, but she cracked open the door and let everyone smell the smoke. And now the Browns aren't just dealing with a quarterback controversy, they're staring down a full-blown crisis of leadership, identity, and control. So, how did we get here? The Cleveland Browns are once again at the center of a quarterback controversy, and this time it's not just about poor performance. It's about trust, power, and a franchise on the brink of implosion. One subtle comment from Mary Kay Cabot, a few failed drives, and suddenly the entire city is debating whether the starting quarterback even belongs on the field. All it took was one game. Dillon Gabriel stepped onto the field against the Vikings for his debut, and it was a flop. From the opening snap, the hesitation was obvious. The plays were conservative. The energy was flat. Fans weren't just disappointed, they were alarmed. Gabriel looked like he was trying not to lose rather than trying to win. And that final drive? A total collapse. It was the kind of outing that doesn't just lose you a game, it starts to unravel trust. Now, in any other scenario, maybe this gets chalked up as a bad day. But this is Cleveland. And this isn't just about Gabriel. This is about a franchise that has been burned too many times before. The margin for error is microscopic. And when Mary Kay Cabot, one of the most respected voices around the Browns, dropped the line that Gabriel couldn't finish the job, it wasn't just commentary. It was an earthquake. That sentence hit fans like a brick. If she's hinting at doubts from inside the building, what does that say about how the organization actually views Gabriel? It's one thing for fans to scream online. It's another when an insider echoes what everyone's already thinking, that this guy might not be it. Cue the chaos. Within hours, Browns Twitter was on fire. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag start Shedeur. Hashtag bench Gabriel. People were digging up college footage of Shedeur Sanders and overlaying it with dramatic music like they were editing a future GOAT tribute. And honestly, the side-by-side comparisons weren't flattering. Gabriel looked shaky and unsure. Meanwhile, Sanders was shown calm in the pocket, reading defenses like a veteran and throwing dimes. The fans had seen enough. They weren't just calling for a change, they were demanding it. But this wasn't just noise. It started to seep into the locker room. Reports started trickling out. Some veterans were questioning the coaching staff's commitment to Gabriel. Players were allegedly asking why Sanders was being held back. The whispers weren't loud, but they were there, and in an NFL locker room, even quiet dissent spreads like wildfire. When leadership feels shaky, everything feels shaky. The Browns weren't just facing a quarterback issue. They were facing a full-blown identity crisis. Kevin Stefanski was now under a microscope. His loyalty to Gabriel, despite the glaring issues, was starting to look less like confidence and more like stubbornness. Fans wanted to know, is he doubling down to save face, or is he genuinely blind to the writing on the wall? And meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders just stood there, silent, composed, unbothered. That silence? It only made things louder. Every shot of Sanders on the sideline went viral. Every nod of encouragement to his teammates became a symbol of maturity. Every still frame of him calmly watching the chaos unfold was seen as a statement. The fans weren't just projecting hope onto him, they were building a whole future. This isn't even about whether Sanders is ready. It's about what he represents. He's the calm in the storm. He's the alternative. The possible solution to a team unraveling in front of our eyes. He hasn't thrown a single pass, and yet he's already become the center of the conversation. That's not normal. That's not typical backup energy. That's franchise quarterback energy. And that energy? It's clashing hard with reality. Because the coaching staff still hasn't made a move. Gabriel is still starting. And the locker room is reportedly tense. Stefanski's leadership is now under scrutiny like never before. Does he believe Gabriel can bounce back? Or is he just refusing to pivot because admitting a mistake would cost him more than a game? Let's not forget, this isn't just about one loss. This is about a pattern. About organizational instincts. The Browns have long been accused of poor decision-making at critical moments. And now, with the world watching, they're choosing to stand by a quarterback who already looks out of sync, already seems like he's losing the team. This could have been fixed. This can still be fixed. But every day that passes without action just deepens the divide. Fans are losing patience. Players are losing trust. And the front office? They're either asleep at the wheel or watching this car crash in slow motion. It's not just Gabriel who's being judged now, it's the entire structure around him. The coaching, the communication, the culture. There's a crisis of identity happening. What kind of team are the Browns? A team that adapts? Or one that sinks with the ship? Sanders' presence in all of this is haunting. He doesn't need to say a word. Every second he stays on the sideline while the team flounders just strengthens the argument for change. It's like he's becoming the team's conscience. The what-if that everyone can feel. The silent rebuke to the chaos playing out around him. And now, even if Gabriel somehow rebounds, the damage might already be done. Confidence is fragile. Trust once broken doesn't rebuild overnight. And the longer this leadership group waits, the more fractured that trust becomes. The fan base is already halfway out the door emotionally. Another game like the last one and they might not come back this season. What's worse? If things spiral and the Browns still don't make the switch, it's going to taint everything. Stefanski's reputation. The front office's judgment. The locker room's unity. This isn't just a quarterback controversy anymore. This is a franchise in limbo. Let's be clear, there's no guarantee that Sanders steps in and becomes a savior. But right now he's being set up as one, by the fans, by the media, maybe even by some teammates. That's a lot of weight for someone who hasn't started yet. But in the NFL, perception moves faster than reality. And right now, the perception is that the Browns are clinging to the wrong guy. This entire saga has become a case study in how quickly things can unravel when leadership doesn't read the room. When loyalty turns into stubbornness. When silence becomes louder than action. And when one subtle media comment lights a match on a powder keg that was already waiting to blow. Mary Kay Cabot might have just said a few words, but those words echoed through the city. Through the locker room. Through the fan base. She didn't start the fire, but she sure reminded everyone it was burning. So now we wait. Will Stefanski adjust? Will Sanders finally get the call? Or will the Browns ride this mess into deeper disaster? Either way, one thing is clear. The Browns are at a breaking point. And whatever happens next, it won't just define this season. It could define the future of this entire regime. If you've been watching this meltdown with popcorn in hand, you're not alone. Drop your take in the comments. Do the Browns make the switch or go down with the ship? And if you're living for this kind of weekly sports chaos, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started. Here's where it all starts to feel like a slow-motion implosion. Not the kind that blows up overnight, but the kind where the cracks form in silence and by the time anyone officially panics, it's already too late. That's where the Cleveland Browns are sitting right now. A quarterback controversy that started with a bad performance is now spiraling into a franchise-level identity crisis. Let's not pretend Dillon Gabriel was set up to be the next franchise quarterback. He wasn't brought in with superstar expectations. But even those limited expectations are crashing hard under the weight of what's unfolding. When your debut is not just bad, but confidence-shattering, you don't get much grace. Especially not in Cleveland, where quarterback purgatory is practically a tradition. And when someone like Mary Kay Cabot points out what everyone's already whispering, that Gabriel couldn't finish the job, it doesn't just land as analysis. It hits like a verdict. She didn't say it was over, but she did say what fans needed to hear, that something feels off. That this version of the Browns, whatever plan they thought they were following, isn't working. And let's be real, fans weren't sitting on their hands before this. The Gabriel support was always lukewarm. People were willing to give him a shot, but not if he looked lost under pressure and unsure of every decision. That's exactly what the Vikings game exposed. He wasn't commanding the huddle. He wasn't pushing tempo. He wasn't showing anything that felt like, this is my team. So when that game ended, people weren't just mad, they were done. They looked over to the sidelines and saw Shedeur Sanders, calm, composed, just there. The contrast was painful. One quarterback trying not to drown, and another standing in the shadows with the poise of someone who's already figured it out. The fact that Sanders hasn't played a snap makes it even worse. Because now he's a myth, a projection, a fantasy. And in situations like this, the unknown becomes more attractive than the reality. Fans started pulling up old college highlights. Calm under pressure, clock management, pocket awareness, deep ball accuracy. It didn't matter who the opponent was. What mattered was the energy. Sanders looked like he belonged. That's all people needed to see. Meanwhile, the front office was stuck. Because once the fanbase collectively shifts toward the backup, the starter becomes radioactive. And that's where Gabriel is right now. Every rep he takes in practice is met with doubt. Every public vote of confidence sounds forced. And every game that goes by without change only makes it worse. But here's where it goes beyond X's and O's, the locker room tension. That's when the alarms really start ringing. When players, veterans no less, start privately questioning the coaching staff's commitment to a struggling quarterback, it's no longer about performance. It's about belief. When belief starts to crack, the entire team structure becomes unstable. And you can't fake that kind of cohesion. If players stop buying in, the losses pile up faster than any coach can fix. This isn't just a bad game. It's a red flag. And it's the kind you can't ignore. Kevin Stefanski is now coaching under a microscope. He was already dealing with questions about offensive identity, play calling, leadership. Now he's got a quarterback controversy with stakes higher than just who's taking snaps. Because if he rides with Gabriel and it fails, that's not just a loss. That's a fireable offense. And it's not like Stefanski's reputation was bulletproof before this. Fans have been back and forth on him for years. Conservative play calling. Confusing rotations. Strange personnel loyalty. Now he's standing in the middle of a burning room pretending everything's fine. But the clock is ticking. Because the longer he delays this decision, the more it reflects poorly on his judgment. You can't lead a locker room if your team thinks you're choosing the wrong guy out of pride. And that's what this looks like now, pride. It doesn't help that Shedeur Sanders has played this whole thing perfectly. No drama. No public comments. No cryptic tweets. Just quiet preparation. That's terrifyingly effective. Because the less he says, the more everyone else fills in the blanks. Every time Gabriel struggles, Sanders gets stronger in the minds of fans and teammates. He's becoming the symbol of what could be, the face of a future that isn't being allowed to start. He hasn't said a word, and yet somehow he's winning the press conference. That should scare the Browns front office more than anything. And here's the big problem. Even if they do make the switch soon, the way this has been handled has already chipped away at the team's unity. Players notice hesitation. They notice when decisions are being made for optics instead of performance. They notice when loyalty outweighs merit. And you can feel it building. The kind of tension that doesn't just go away with one win. So the Browns are now staring down two terrifying outcomes. Option 1. Keep starting Gabriel and hope he magically improves, even though every indicator says the locker room's already checked out. That's the slow death. Option 2. Promote Sanders and pray the hype isn't too big too early. That's the risky gamble. But the real kicker? The first option is starting to look worse. Because you can't lead a team in a quarterback-driven league with a QB nobody believes in. And the Browns' credibility, both with fans and inside their own building, is slipping fast. This isn't just about one game anymore. It's about a narrative that's gotten completely away from them. Mary Kay Cabot lit the match, but the team poured the gasoline by refusing to act. And now, even if Stefanski pulls the plug and goes with Sanders, the damage is already done. Fans won't forget how long it took. Players won't forget the silence from leadership. And no matter what happens, Gabriel might never recover from being publicly abandoned without being officially benched. It's lose-lose if they keep waiting. And let's be honest, it's hard to come back from a situation where the backup is more popular than the coach. So what's left? A franchise teetering on the edge. A coach out of answers. A starter out of sync. A backup wrapped in hope and mystery. And a fan base that's tired of watching the same movie over and over again. The Browns are staring down a moment that could define their next 5 years. Get it wrong and you don't just lose a season. You lose credibility. You lose talent. You lose control. And all because they refused to listen when the alarms were going off. This is where crisis meets ego. And right now ego's winning. But there's still time. Not much, but enough. If they rip the Band-Aid off and finally give Shedeur Sanders the shot, they might just regain control of the narrative. They might even galvanize the locker room. But if they don't? Then this isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's a full-blown leadership collapse. The Browns can't afford to wait another week to find out what happens next. This entire situation is starting to feel like classic Browns dysfunction with a modern twist. The fan revolt, the internal whispers, the media lightning rod. It's like watching a rerun of a show you wanted to stop watching, but it just keeps getting renewed. But what makes this meltdown different is how fast it escalated. One game. That's all it took. One shaky, uninspired, confidence-shattering debut from Dillon Gabriel, and the entire house of cards started swaying. You can't overstate how visibly uncomfortable he looked out there. The hesitation, the missed reads, the lack of rhythm. And then, just when it mattered most, crunch time, he folded. He didn't just fail to execute a comeback, he barely looked like he believed one was possible. And then Mary Kay Cabot speaks. Not yelling. Not calling for heads. Just one surgical, 5-word phrase, couldn't finish the job. Boom. The city ignites. You've got to understand, Mary Kay isn't just a random analyst throwing shade. She's the voice. If she says something like that, even subtly, it means she's heard something. Or at the very least, she knows how it's being received behind the scenes. And when fans heard that, they didn't need more permission. The knives came out. Twitter turned into a war zone. People weren't even mad. They were mobilized. And who did they rally around? Shedeur Sanders. Now here's where it gets wild. Sanders hasn't thrown a single professional pass. But somehow he's become the savior of the franchise by default. Why? Because the situation is that bleak. Gabriel's performance left such a bad taste in everyone's mouth that they're now ready to crown the backup as king, just because he isn't the current starter. And you know what? It's not just emotion. People have receipts. Clips of Sanders in college. Collected. Clutch. There's footage of him threading tight windows with defenders breathing down his neck. Breaking down blitzes. Commanding the pocket with a kind of maturity you don't fake. Fans started stitching those plays together with Gabriel's deer-in-headlights debut. And yeah, it wasn't a fair fight. Sanders looked like a polished pro. Gabriel looked like a guy trying not to get benched. So when fans started chanting "Start Shedeur" on social, it wasn't just noise. It was direction. It was frustration channeled into something tangible. And that's where the Browns front office should have felt the heat. Because once the locker room gets wind of that, and they always do, things start shifting fast. You don't need players to go to the media. You just need silence. Side glances. Offhand comments. Body language on the sideline. Reports started leaking. Veterans quietly questioning why Gabriel was still running with the ones. Not calling for Sanders explicitly but wondering aloud, what are we doing here? Is this really our guy? And in the NFL, once you lose the locker room's belief in the quarterback, it's basically over. Even worse? The coaching staff did nothing. No media clarity. No honest evaluation. Just vague PR-safe statements about development and continuity. You know, the kind of language that buys time, but only when the product on the field is trending in the right direction. This is spiraling. Gabriel didn't just struggle. He's now the symbol of a leadership team that's either out of touch or unwilling to pivot. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders is becoming the inverse symbol. Calm, patient, ready. He hasn't said anything and he doesn't need to. That silence? It's powerful. Every camera shot of him on the sideline is a whole story. He's not sulking. He's not campaigning. He's watching, waiting, preparing. That kind of quiet confidence? It speaks louder than any press conference. And it's working. You've got fans making graphics of him in a Browns uniform like it's already the future. You've got Reddit threads mapping out what the offense would look like with his skill set. You've got analysts not so subtly suggesting the team is wasting time by not handing him the reins now. So what's Stefanski doing? Still riding with Gabriel. Still hoping the guy who looked overwhelmed on day one is suddenly going to turn into a leader of men. Let's call it what it is, he's gambling. But not just on Gabriel. He's gambling on himself. Because if he sticks with Gabriel and this thing implodes further, it's his job on the line. Not just his record. His identity as a head coach. His ability to lead. To adapt. To read the room. And let's not sugarcoat it, the room is screaming. You've got fans doubting. You've got whispers inside the locker room. You've got the entire media corps already circling like sharks. And the longer Stefanski hesitates, the worse it's going to get. Because this isn't just about what Gabriel does next week. It's about the message being sent to the rest of the team. That performance doesn't matter. That accountability is optional. That comfort zones matter more than wins. And no one respects that. Players don't play for coaches who can't make hard calls. And right now, the hardest and most necessary call is to sit Gabriel down and hand the ball to Shedeur Sanders. It's not even a knock on Gabriel anymore. It's just reality. The moment is too big. The trust is too broken. And the team can't afford to wait around hoping for a miracle. What makes it worse? The Browns have a potential solution standing right there in uniform. Ready. Composed. Waiting for his moment. That's not always the case. Sometimes the backup really isn't ready. Sometimes the next guy doesn't have the mental makeup. But Sanders? He's already won the public. He's already halfway won the locker room. All that's left is the actual snap. So why delay? Because the longer this goes on, the uglier it gets. Gabriel becomes the scapegoat. Sanders becomes a pressure cooker. Stefanski becomes the face of inaction. And the franchise continues its time-honored tradition of tripping over itself at the exact worst moment. This was supposed to be the start of a new era. Stability. Confidence. Identity. Instead, it's déjà vu with better camera angles. And the sad part? It didn't have to be this way. All it would take is decisive leadership. One honest press conference. One move toward the guy everyone already sees as the future. But instead we're trapped in limbo. Where the backup is beloved, the starter is doubted, and the coach is frozen in place, terrified of the consequences no matter what he chooses. This isn't just a football decision anymore. It's a statement about what kind of organization the Browns want to be. Flexible or rigid. Fearless or afraid. Honest or delusional. Because right now, all signs point to fear. And if they don't act fast, that fear is going to cost them everything. The locker room, the fan base, and whatever shreds of credibility they had left. You don't need to be a genius to see where this is headed. It's either a redemption arc, or a collapse. No middle ground. So Browns fans, where do you stand? Are you riding this out with Gabriel in hopes he proves everyone wrong? Or are you ready to see if Shedeur Sanders can turn all this pressure into performance? Let us know in the comments. And if you love watching football chaos that feels more like a reality show than a sport, subscribe. Because the Browns might just be getting started. This saga? It's nowhere near over.